We'll call this meeting to order, and we have to, of course, obviously await the requisite number of 13 before we can transact the business, but I thought we'd get the preliminary stuff out of the way, and so I'm going to cover a few things, what's covered in the markup today, and eventually I assume we'll hear from the ranking member, and when we get to 13, we'll move to try and get this done as quickly as possible. I'm pleased to report that we again have an agenda that enjoys bipartisan support. We should be able to complete our work relatively quickly. I'd just like to say a few words about some of those agenda items. From agriculture to energy products to motor vehicles, the safe and efficient movement of goods by rail is vital to our nation's economy. Today, the committee will consider two bills that would ensure our nation's freight rail system works for all stakeholders, shippers, railroads, regulators, and the households that ultimately bear the costs of problems and inefficiencies. The major rail service issues experienced in 2013 and 14 in South Dakota, the upper Midwest, and across the country are very fresh in my mind, including the grain car backlogs, the storage constraints, and the increased rail car premiums that shippers and businesses faced. A recent USDA report found that those rail service issues drove down crop prices throughout the region. While the Surface Transportation Board has been working diligently to ensure these issues do not happen again, the recent service crisis highlighted inefficiencies at the agency that Congress has the ability to address. The STB has not been reauthorized or substantially reformed since its formation nearly 20 years ago, and while it may come to some as a surprise, Congress rarely creates a perfect regulatory agency. I've been working closely with Ranking Member Nelson and shippers, railroads, and the STB on common sense, balanced reforms that would make the agency run more efficiently. The Bipartisan Surface Transportation Board Reauthorization Act, similar to the bill reported by the committee last Congress, would increase transparency, accessibility, and efficiency at the STB by expanding voluntary arbitration procedures to resolve rate cases and service issues more quickly and with less cost, providing the STB with the authority to initiate investigations on significant rail issues, creating rate review timelines to ensure the STB efficiently decides on relief, expanding membership from 3 to 5 members and allowing board members to actually have collaborative discussions, and finally requiring the STB to establish a database of complaints and prepare quarterly reports on them. Just as we're seeking to reform the STB to address recent realities, the oversight of rail safety must also account for real-world technical challenges and government inefficiencies. That's why I'm pleased that we'll be considering the Railroad Safety and Positive Train Control Extension Act sponsored by Senators Blunt and McCaskill. I'm glad to be a co-sponsor along with Ranking Member Nelson and Senators Fisher, Heller, Johnson, Moran, Rubio, Ayotte, and Sullivan. The Department of Transportation and the Government Accountability Office have both published reports stating that the majority of railroads will not meet the December 31, 2015 deadline to implement PTC. The issues are interrelated and complex, from the availability of system technology to track database verification, and some of the barriers to adoption are government-created. Keep in mind, railroads must install over 35,000 wayside antenna structures nationwide to transmit PTC signals, and in May 2013, the FCC halted construction of these structures until the agency could develop a process to review historic preservation and tribal impacts. While these issues have now been resolved, the FCC did not finalize a revised process until a year later, significantly delaying implementation. Railroads have made a good faith effort to install PTC. They spent over $5 billion of private funds, deployed over 19,000 wayside antennas, and equipped or partially equipped over 13,000 locomotives. Yet for every major freight railroad and nearly every small freight commuter railroad, the PTC deadline is simply not attainable. PTC needs to be done, and it needs to be done right. Rather than introducing new operational and safety risks from an incomplete system or punishing railroads making a good faith effort to implement this extremely complex and expensive mandate, Congress should extend the PTC deadline to account for the immense technical and government-imposed implementation challenges. I understand that the PTC bill we're marking up today will likely be subject to additional changes before enactment, but with the December 2015 deadline approaching, I also believe it's important for us to take this step here in the Commerce Committee. In addition to these rail measures today, the agenda also includes legislation I have sponsored with Ranking Member Nelson to reauthorize the Sport Fish Restoration and Recreational Boating Safety Act, continuing a successful user pays public benefits program that has benefited anglers and fishermen since 1950. We will also be considering legislation sponsored by Senator Wicker, along with Senator Schatz, Cantwell, Sullivan, to reauthorize the National Sea Grant College Program, and the Driver Privacy Act, co-sponsored by Senators Hoeven and Klobuchar, to ensure the privacy of information collected by a car's event data recorder. Both of these measures cleared the committee in the 113th Congress, and I'm hopeful they'll clear the full Senate this Congress. Finally, we're going to be considering 3 nominees, including Dr. Willie May to be Director of NIST, Dr. Dava Newman to be Deputy Administrator of NASA, and Patricia Cahill to be a board member of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. All 3 are qualified, and I look forward to supporting their nominations. Ranking Member, Senator Nelson is here. I would defer to you for any opening statement that you have.